Oh, hello.
Hello.
What's happening, everyone?
Thanks, Taylor.
How are you?
And lady.
Yay. I'm here with my favorite whiskey women, and we have a special guest today. You guys, we have Jazz, the CEO, with us.
Hey.
And we are going to be talking to her about some really cool career that she has and her experiences. And but first, before we get into that, Chastity, how was your birthday?
My birthday was fun. I had a great Cancer season. I'm a Cancer Leo, so Leo season's still celebrating a little bit, but I had a great birthday. Thanks for asking.
And you went kayaking and you didn't love it?
I did. I went kayaking, and it wasn't the best experience. It was. I prefer relaxation.
It's supposed to be relaxing. See,
but
anyone who's watching that is a kayaker, let me tell you that your dear friend, who was very well intentioned, took her out in the Chicago River for the first time, which just seems really intimidating to me. And I'm a seasoned kayaker, so I feel like if we get you in a warm, quiet lake and try again, you might.
Maybe. We'll see. But
maybe.
Yeah. Maybe you're just like on the way to like a chateau where there will be champagne or something. Sure.
That's the Leo. That's that Leo coming out.
Chastity. We're taking notes. Chateau, French gardens, some beautiful pastries.
We're gonna put her in a pond in Paris, in a little pond, and she can just like go in circles and just kind of chill and like paddle one-sided.
That's more up my alley.
So May, how about you? What's been going on with you lately?
I'm really trying to hide the fact that I'm wearing gym shorts, so I totally outed myself. So I feel like I have to show you guys now. Just to get this out the way. I'm really sorry. I'm normally a really professional person, but I'm outing myself. So
hey, it's COVID.
Okay.
My favorite color. They're my favorite color. They're good shorts.
They are your favorite. But I am on brand, guys. I am on brand.
Yeah,
we got some whiskey business. And our shirts, yay! Our shirts are actually available on our website. So if anybody who wants to join us in wearing whiskey shirts and gym shorts,
or whiskey,
kind of break. I want to give y'all some island vibes today.
Yeah, I like it.
I love it. I love your outfit, Chastity. No, it's so nice to see you, ladies.
You too, always.
Well, I am so excited to have our now friend Jazz here with us. I bumped into Jazz on Instagram, and I think I saw you post about drinking Uncle Nearest, and then I read your bio, and I was like, wait, what? And so I reached out to her, and I said, tell me about yourself, because I'm thinking in my head, God, this would be such a great person to have with us on one of our broadcasts. And then she told me about herself and her career and a project she has coming up, and I was just like, oh my God, we have to schedule you. So here you are.
Exactly what happened. The hands and everything in there.
That's what was going on. You couldn't see it in the thread of Instagram messages, but now you know that this is what was happening.
I felt it.
Okay, good. I'm glad. So first of all, just tell us, please, a little bit about yourself and who you are and your career and kind of how that all happened.
Okay. Well, I'm Jazz, the CEO, but my name is Jasmine. And I go by Jazz, the CEO, because someone decided to call me that one day because I was doing so many things, and they were like, we're tired of saying, oh, Jazz does this, Jazz does, we're just going to call you Jazz, the CEO. And it kind of stuck with me. And I was like, you know what? I like that. It looks good on t-shirts. It looks good on Instagram. I like it. So that's kind of where the name came from, just having a whole bunch of things under my belt. So in the security industry, like in my bio, I just say security industry professional because I do private security, armed security. I also am a private detective, process server. I do executive protection, anything technically in the realm of that whole security kind of thing, anything in protection, anything where now I'm training to be a firearms instructor. So anything that's kind of protecting other people or teaching people to protect themselves, I have my hand in there. So, I mean, my brother and my father, they're both police officers. Um, they both were in the military. I don't like uniforms. And I like wearing my own snazzy little shirts. So I can't really go somewhere where I got to wear the same exact thing every day. I tried it. I used to be a federal security officer, and I tried it. And I was like, this is something I can't do for the rest of my life. So for a whole bunch of reasons, I kind of left out of that and went to the private sector. And in the private sector, you can do things like this. You can choose who you do security for. You can choose where you go. You can choose your hours. And it just fit my personality more. And then once I kind of like dive deep into it, I'm like, I can help more people this way. People ask me all the time, why you didn't do law enforcement? The politics in there, I can't do what I want to do. Like I just had a mother and daughter at my class, and neither one has fired a gun before. They were scared, but they also want to protect themselves. So I had the joy of like, talking them through that and telling them how to help each other when they go home and different things like that. And I love being hands on. So the private sector, that's just where I landed, and I think I'm flourishing in it. I think so. That's kind of I've been doing it for 15 years. Security as a whole. I was a mall cop. I was Paul Blart. I was with the little with the little funny hat and the little radio. That was me. And I'm only 5'3", so you can just imagine how that looked. But you got to get your experiences from everywhere that you can. So I started that, but I'm from Buffalo, New York, so I did that in Buffalo, and eventually I moved here for the federal job to Baltimore. So I just been growing in the industry and learning from some great people, and then that's how you ended up in my inbox, because you said on my bio, the de-escalation thing in my bio. I mentioned just a minute ago that I'm 5'3". So just imagine me trying to be security at college parties, me being security. I mean, pretty much everybody's bigger than me. So de-escalation stopped being like a tool, and it became a mindset. Like I wake up with that mindset. It's not something I'm like, okay, let me de-escalate. It just comes out naturally, because I'm really going to work. No matter what I have on my duty belt, I'm going to work to preserve life of the people that I'm paid to protect, and life of the people that may cause harm. I'm not trying to cause harm. So that's when I started, saying that I was an advocate for it, because I don't think people think of it as something you should carry with you every day. And that's why we have so many different instances, especially in the security world. We don't hear about them as much, but I mean, there's a lot of security officers who've gotten fired, arrested, just because they went a little, like an inch too far, because they didn't think of talking the person down, or they just think, just because I'm a big guy, I can just throw this guy and this girl out of the club, kind of thing. So I try, anybody that comes in my path, I try to say, your mind and your words, those are biggest weapons that you have. You want to go home, but you also want to allow other people to go home too. So that's kind of my stance on de-escalation, as far as why I call myself an advocate for it. So
I love that. It was definitely the thing to me that stood out about you, and it also made me think. So I'm 5. You're 5'3". You've got 3 inches.
Really? Oh, I'm tall.
I would make you look tall. Everybody appreciates that about me. I worked in bars back in the day when you had a baseball bat and possibly a gun behind your bar, when it was normal. Before, when I was too young to get anything that would have been a higher end or a restaurant bar. We're talking either college bars or just dives or whatever. And I had lots of situations where I saw fights break out and wanted to help, and realized that I'm like the little dogs, I've got a big bark and I'll run in there and try to take everybody out, but
I know that. Trust me.
All right. Because of my stature, of course. When you're wielding a bat and you played softball, you have a better shot, but I can imagine in a small amount, from my point of view, what it would be like to have to be the protector of someone. And then also, what was this industry? I mean, this may seem like a dumb question, but how, let's say, what degree of welcome did you find in this industry as a Black woman?
So this industry has a lot of lanes and a lot of levels. So at the very basic level, it's open to anyone. You could go into, let me see, an office building and you see somebody's grandmother, and you see they have security on their back. So there's different levels. You're not expecting her to chase somebody down and put handcuffs on them, but that's who I ask what floor such and such is on. You know what I'm saying? So there's definitely a lot of levels. So on the basic level, it's welcoming because it's open to anyone. But once you start getting to really deep in the private sector, once you start getting to celebrity protection, especially we could just go with celebrity protection, that they really want 6'4", 6'5", big, huge Black guys. That's it. That's what they want. That's what you see the rappers have. And then you hear on the news that the rapper bodyguard got arrested because they had an illegal gun, or you hear that the rapper got beat up anyway because the bodyguard wasn't trained. So you have those problems, even though you still have that stigma, and people still want to only hire those kind of people. So when it comes to that, and I'm dabbling in the executive protection, but I found a niche that I really like, which is wedding security, because I can blend in. I can look like a guest. I can do that. So I do these high priority weddings of politicians' daughters and stuff like that. And, you don't expect me, because I'm dressing in my regular, suits and stuff. And you don't expect me to be the one that's like, get on the ground, stop playing with me, So, that industry is actually, that part of the industry actually welcomed me, because I didn't look like the average security officer. I didn't have that same look or style, because sometimes you walk into some place and that even though that person is in plain clothes, that's the police or that's security. You just know, because they're straight out of the military. They still have the shoulders, they still have the thing. So I have to say that part is very welcoming. But then when you get on the owner side of things, where you're trying to get contracts and you're trying to go and sit in the room and sit at these long tables with people, that's when you kind of start to feel, okay, they don't want me here. They thought that the picture I put up was the owner, and now they're seeing that it's me, and I'm just getting into that side. So I'm feeling that once I moved up a level, you can tell that, okay, first, we don't want to talk to women. We don't want to talk to you about our safety. That's just, it makes us feel some type of way, and we don't want to go home and tell our wives we hired a woman to take care of what we got to take care of. So you get that, and you even have people who tell you that, how I'm going to tell my wife that I hired a woman to protect me. I've had somebody actually say that to me, so you definitely get some certain areas, the mall's going to hire whoever they want to pay their minimum wage to, but somebody at a higher level, it's definitely difficult to get in there. And, but I'm making my way through it. So,
What are some challenges that you, aside from what you just mentioned, what type of challenges do you come across as a Black woman in your industry?
Respect is a hard thing to get as a Black woman in the industry. And I'm not just saying that just because it's already hard for Black women in any industry. I'm saying that because I'm very open, and I'm very blunt, and and I talk to people. People actually tell me these things like, well, we don't really have any Black women. People, because I make you feel comfortable. Sometimes people say things that they probably shouldn't say to me. Over 15 years, there's been people who've actually said that. So, I mean, that the respect, I think, is the hardest thing, and probably the thing I work at all the time. And that goes from my social media to my pictures to what I say. Respect, I'm trying to, I guess I'm trying to earn it at all times, so I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is for somebody to look at me, look the way I looking, and be like, okay, I respect this person as an expert, in this area or someone who can actually take care of business in this area. So I think that's one.
I mean, isn't that interesting? That goes across all lines as a woman first,
Right.
and then of course as women of color even more.
Mhm.
We've talked about this in our own industry. So, but it's such a great example. So you have the 6'5" black guy who immediately has the respect because of
Yep.
his stature. He has not earned it. He probably does. Let's say he maybe doesn't deserve it. I can think
They
of many
don't
rappers.
usually.
I was going to say who were shot and killed, but they're security people right there. But then there's you who has the knowledge, the experience, the background, and probably a lot more intelligence to be able to navigate the situation. And you have to fight for that respect. So
Yeah.
this is why we hammer equity in so much when we talk really about anything. And that's one of the founding principles of our company. Creating equity in our industry, and also, you said something about sitting at the table, and I know I've said this before. And if Fawn was here, she would say, "Well, I'm going to create my own table, and then
Yeah.
I'll invite them to sit with me." Because I spoke to her about glass ceilings once, having to punch my way through glass ceilings. Blah. And she was like, "Oh no, I don't bother with that. I just build another house taller next to it." And it was such a
Yeah.
simple thing, and I was like mind blown. But it's because I had come at it from such a different way. So it's just and while you're talking about this, we have two gentlemen that decided that they would offer their help to you. I'm sure they're kidding. But my response was, "I think she's got this, boys."
Oh boy. I'm glad I can't see the comments now.
We're not here for that, guys.
Just to highlight your expertise, and something that we've touched upon was, maybe the person that is larger in stature maybe might not be the best person to not antagonize the situation and have it be something that becomes worse than tenfold. So I'm a petite woman myself. I'm 5'4", and Sailor and I, we're the ones who are not going to make the roller coaster sometimes, on the rides. And, I'm sure that, you are aware of some of the unconscious bias towards you. And so I was just wondering, how do you, as a security expert, how do you assess the situation, and what are your steps for de-escalation? Because I know that, what you might not have in necessarily physical stature, you will have in skill set and being able to read people and being able to use the situation.
So the first thing I'm going to take out is being able to read people. Assessing and reading the situation is probably the biggest thing, because with the guys, even if they are perfect for that job, sometimes, unfortunately, even when they go to the grocery store, being the size that they are already makes the situation higher than it needs to be, because somebody is either intimidated or they're scared of just the way they look. So even if they say, "Hey, can you not do that?" in their softest voice, "What do you mean, can I not do that?" And they're already kind of, on the edge because just of the way they look. So for me, it's like, okay, if I'm in a team, especially if I'm in a team and we're all different and we all look different, I'm reading who we're going to approach. And then I'm deciding what method is best for that person. And with that, I'm reading the people around me the whole entire night. I'm not just reading the person when there's a problem. I'm at the door. I'm looking to see who has what, who got what taken off them. And that's just from club experience. So if somebody got a knife, "Oh, let me put my knife back in the car," or, "Oh, I was drinking already," or these things stick with me. And I remember them all the way 4 or 5 hours down the line when the person has started a fight. And I go, "Oh, that's the one that had to take the knife back to the car. We already know that they have weapons. We know that that's who they, hang with. Let's treat them like this. Let's do that." Like, so assessing and reading a room, I mean, that probably for me is my first few steps, and then giving respect, even when I don't get it back. That's probably the next step, the calm tone, and the respect. And sometimes calm but firm, because sometimes even when you're calm, that makes somebody mad. Especially if they're already upset. If they're already upset and you're like, "I understand." They're like, "What?" You understand me? How dare you understand me? So my steps definitely are just to kind of read their body language. And I mean, all of this that I'm saying sounds really good, but it's only, I only have 5 seconds to do it. You know, like I'm saying it right now, but I literally only have 5 to 10 seconds to do all of that before I act. But for me, I'm not trying to get physical. So I'm going to go down these steps with, adjusting my body language to counter what they are giving. If they're high, I'm trying to bring it down a step. So when you said reading the room, that probably is my biggest step, because that's the only step I can take, first, in order to, assess what step to take next. And then it's just talking. I'm literally trying to talk. A de-escalation is literally basically trying to talk your way out of a situation. And some people can and some people can't. And that's why I always say it's a skill, because as a kid, if you were a good liar, you got away with stuff. If you weren't, then you got caught, even if you didn't do it, because you just were bad.
I think it depends on your parents, because some parents, even if you're a good liar,
some parents just want, either you want to get in trouble, you're in trouble no matter what.
Yeah.
But that was me. I was good at talking my way out of it. Only my mom would catch it, but so it's really about assessing, and I use that in so many ways. So it's body language, things that I've seen them do throughout the night, and then I'm controlling my emotions, because I if you watch videos, and that's for anybody that has anything to do with law enforcement, people are very disrespectful. People say things out of their mouth that you'd be like, how did you even think of that? But at the moment, you have to compartmentalize. Like, you have to control your emotions and take emotions out of the job when it comes to being disrespected. Not necessarily take emotions out of the job when it comes for caring for who's in front of you, because for me, that's a big part of de-escalation too. I can't de-escalate someone whose life I'm discarding anyway. How can I even care to de-escalate if I already don't care about you, period, as a human? So all those things for me are first, like, okay, let me turn up my empathy all the way up on the stereo. Let me figure out the problem. Let me assess how I think this person is going to react. And sometimes I don't make the first point of contact on purpose. I want to see how they react to somebody else, so that I can be like, okay, let me do it this way. And then, I come in and save the day, but, probably should keep that in my pocket, but, I'll give it to everybody else. But that's pretty much how I start de-escalation. And how I finish it really depends on the person. It really depends on the situation and the person. If there's more than one person, my huge goal is to get that person away from the crowd. A lot of people like to put on a show. So, once I assess and I figure out, oh, this person just wants to talk, this person just wants to be center of attention, let me create a space where he's by himself or she's by herself, and now she doesn't have the peanut gallery behind her, So I think for me, that's the first things I usually do in de-escalation. So I see you got
thanks for sharing that. I mean, it sounds like it's a lot of, being able to process information in very quick, small time increments in high stress situations. And then, like you said, turning up the empathy and finding a way of maneuvering it where violence and physical contact and altercation is the absolute last resort. How do you take care of yourself after? Because, even if you're not responding in that moment when there's a lot of hostility being directed towards you, or the threat of violence, or, being verbally attacked, or possibly, unfortunately physically, how do you take care of yourself when you come home and are able to decompress?
I don't think anybody has ever asked me that, like, ever. So that's really a good question. I have to think about that. My answers are probably going to be weird. So TV, movies. I am a huge movie person, and watching that kind of stuff and laughing and kind of being like, oh, I went through that situation, or, oh, I had to do, like, I don't let any of it really go deep inside enough for it to affect me. Even physical stuff, which has happened before. I've had cases and I've had to go to court and prove that I did what I did because I had to. So even cases, I have to always remember that whatever's happening is not, it's not actually really about me. Like they don't know me. Even when they're calling me a name and they're literally looking at me, they don't actually see you. They see the uniform. So once I go home and I take the uniform off, I take off all that stuff that they threw at the uniform metaphorically as well. And I've been fortunate enough to really be good at that. So I mean, and it probably stemmed from school. I have rheumatoid arthritis, and when I was a kid, I got it when I was 14. So not being able to like walk like other children, or not being able to play sports like other, and you have kids, they say anything to you. They have no clue what they're talking about, but they'll tease you about it just because. So I learned early that, not to be cliche, but sticks and stones, it just those were, I mean, yeah, and cancer, I'm very emotional when it comes to other things, but this thing, it's a job, so I really try my hardest to say, okay, once this uniform is off, I'm just back to being Jazz, so I try my hardest not to take it home with me. People try, but I don't let it happen.
I guess
there's something that, sorry, go ahead.
Gives me flashbacks of bartending, because as a bartender, we use some of those same techniques and evaluate the customer and whether or not they've had too much to drink, and then we have to de-escalate when we cut them off. I'm just acknowledging the similarities.
Yeah.
Between the bartender and your work. Seriously.
But we're the first line of defense, though, in the clubs. Because if we can't handle it, I was just
about to say that.
Yeah, then we call security. I've done that so many times. But I don't know about you, Chastity. If you were told like that, we have to try to handle it first before we call security. Which I always kind of was like, what the? It's not my job, man. Like I already do enough, right?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be a bartender and a therapist, and then a police officer. Okay, cool.
Absolutely. Bartenders are therapists. They are. They absolutely are.
But I've seen a few people get the crap kicked out of them in a way that I did not agree with, and that changed, because I used to just be like, I had no tolerance when I was younger. I'd be like, "Oh, you're being a jerk. You're out of here.
You're out of here." Hey, look, I was that bartender when I was young too. Absolutely. Especially when you already had my back. Oh yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah. But then I learned, because I saw one guy I didn't know the security guys this well. It was a new security guy. He kicked the crap out of this customer, and it was not right. Oh. And it stuck with me. Because I was like, oh my God, I did that. I made that happen, and it bothered me so much. And I don't know if I ever got security involved again after that. It just affected me really so much that I just handled it myself. And I mean, I've drugged people out of bars by myself before, and I think I can get away with it because there's shock, because I'm so tiny. And then the minute the shock wears off, I gotta run.
I call small people tiny but mighty.
Yeah, people are always shocked when like a situation goes down, and I'm like handling it, and I'm like, first of all, I train for this stuff. Like I look the way I look, but seriously, I know that I'm 5'3". I know that I'm a woman. I know that I'm 150 pounds. So I know that the one wrong hit can knock me out. I already know that. So if you are, real with yourself, and I say that all the time when I'm telling people, about de-escalation. I'm saying that one of the biggest things is you got to be real about yourself. You have to be real with yourself and about yourself. Are you able to do this? Can you really execute the steps that are needed to de-escalate? And if you can't, that's fine. But have somebody with you who can, or do something else. Because if you're not able to handle the situation, you shouldn't be there. Because not being able to handle it, especially as a female, not being able to could cause a whole new set of problems. It's for you if you get hit, because some of these guys do not care that you're a girl. You're the one talking to me, then you're the one that gets hit. That's just the bottom line of that. And and you have to be like, okay, it's my off day, but I should go to the gym. It's my off day, but I should be training martial arts. It's my off day, but I should go shooting, because it's going to be one of your on days, and you're going to be feeling like how you felt on your off day, and something's going to happen, and you're not going to be ready. So, and part of de-escalation is being ready, because de-escalation doesn't always work. I say do it, I say put it first, but it does not always work. Sometimes you can't de-escalate because that person is just too far gone. If their goal is to hurt you, then that's just their goal, no matter what you say. So, definitely ladies have to always be ready. So
Jess, how do you use being a woman, your height and your stature to your advantage as a security professional? Because we talked and touched a little bit about how, in some regards, it can exclude you from being considered for certain jobs. Put you in a little bit more of a precarious situation depending on the person that you are addressing. But how can it be to your advantage?
So in the security industry right now, I think it's a big need for female security officers, especially when it comes to executive protection, not the uniform type security, because people want to go, like CEOs want to go out without having that big couple of guys behind them, or the guys in suits with the earpieces. They kind of want to be regular. They're not flashy like the rap stars. So they want to be regular, and they want to have somebody who can also protect their children, who can also protect their wives. And if I'm with a celebrity's wife, or if I'm with a CEO's wife, it looks like we're going grocery shopping. We're friends. So it doesn't make them feel like they're being followed. It doesn't make, a lot of people don't want to have that feeling like they have security. I don't know. I wish I had security all the time, so I don't know that feeling. But a lot of people say that. I was like, hey, get the door for me. I would love to say that, but a lot of people don't want to really feel or give off that they're scared either. You have a lot of guys who say, okay, I want to hire you. I love the way you're talking. I love the things you're laying out, but I don't want to see you. I don't want other people to see you. How do we get around that? So my size and me being a woman is, now for somebody who wears dresses and they're female security, that's even better, because if they're going to a gala, they're going to an outing, and, they got their firearm on their leg, but they're in a cocktail dress, then that even gives off, even more of a lax feeling for the actual client. So right now, I think it's a big need and want for female security officers right now. So that's pretty much how we use it. We're able to blend in just a little bit more than the average male can blend in. So yeah, that's a good thing.
I've never even, because we mentioned earlier, sometimes you're out and you can recognize a plain officer or detective or whatever, but I've never actually been able to identify a woman security officer. Never. And now I'm going to start looking.
I have because they're usually in suits, and they're usually looking around a lot, and they stay like a good 3-4 feet away. So they're never too far, but they don't hover too close. And I remember so we all bartended, in our youth. And I remember there would be like 15 guys in suits at the places I would work at, and maybe 1 or 2 women. And part of that also was the ability to go into the ladies' restroom if there was an issue there, or if someone needed to be patted down, or, those were those considerations as well too. And I had so much respect because they were so smart, and they were more than able to hold their own. And, I think that is something that I think most of us are used to being underestimated. Being women of color and being women, unfortunately, especially in more traditional male, roles and occupations and careers. And I think the point that you brought up about how it's an advantage, because if you are a high profile person, you don't necessarily want to draw attention to you. And if you are with an entourage and you are with someone who is secure, clearly security, you are drawing unneeded attention to you. And that might actually make you more of a target when you're out and about, and, with your family or your loved ones.
Yeah. And kids in particular, they will stare at you. If you're a big security person and they know that you're the security person, the kids are going to give it away. The kids are just like, and turn around. So you have to take all that into consideration. But if you're with the kid and you're holding the bag and you're talking to the kid, and the kid's da da da, because you're familiar with the kid, it's not so much, seen from the outside. People are not really looking at you. They're like, some people might say, oh, what is that, the nanny? That's weird. But their first thought wouldn't be security. And it's really about how you, especially with the looking around and the stance that you brought up, that is like the universal, I'm security, don't mess with me. I see you, and I see you kind of stance, and I'm definitely looking around a lot. Like even when I go out to eat, I sit, I don't have my back to the door, I'm sitting, kind of catty-corner. So if I got to get up, I'm getting up kind of thing. Yeah. Well, so we know, so I'm still doing that. But when I'm on the job, like I'm trying to be a little bit more low key because the covert security is really wanted at this moment. And I mean, even uniform security is wanted at this moment. I mean, everybody is calling for security. People who didn't even have security before, everything that's going on, stores that didn't have security, everything. I mean, I'm getting all kinds of calls. And even when you said, May, about the pat downs, I used to like get phone calls to not even stay the whole night. Hey, we'll pay you just to come out and do pat downs in the beginning of the night. And, and I would go because I love experience. So I would go. I don't do it anymore. I don't do the clubs anymore, honey. But I used to do it just because, I mean, I need to know where to find this stuff, and you can use it in other situations. I mean, I found a stun gun in somebody's boot before. It was like one of those furry boots. And, she was ready to get patted down because she just knew we weren't going to go in that boot. She just was like, go ahead, pat me down. And I'm like, okay. But because she was so eager to be patted down, the pat down was way more thorough than probably it would have been if she had just been quiet. But that's the part about, focusing and assessing and paying attention to body language and things people do at the door from the start. She was just very like, pat me down. I was like, why is she so excited? Mm-hmm. So I was like, what is happening? So I end up patting her down. And I mean, I was just about to say, okay, you're good. And she was just so excited. So I was like, this is weird. So I did it again. I was like, this is just weird. So it was kind of a gap in her boot with her ankle. So, I just stuck my hand down there and she stopped talking. And I was like, oh, goodness, what am I going to find? And then when I got to the other boot, there you go. I pulled out a pink stun gun. It was pretty, but it was a stun gun in her boot. So like that is very important to have female guards there. And a lot of clubs don't hire female guards. I'm in a couple of groups where all the time they say, hey, we need 2 males for tonight. We need 2 males for tonight. And then when they come back the week later and telling all the stories that happen, it's usually with females fighting. But they didn't really have anybody there to take care of it. So that's kind of the part that you get looked over for because they want.
I ever think of a club that I worked at that had
female. Yeah. But it's really needed. Like you, especially if there's, like she said, if there's a fight in the bathroom, if there's something, you don't want to open yourself up to liability for 2 grown men going in the bathroom, and you got
also, as a woman, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I mean, again, I grew up in a city, but I feel like I would know better than a lot of the men that are trained exactly where to hide shit because I did it.
Oh yeah. Oh, we do.
I mean, it was alcohol, weapons. I used to hide cigarettes. My mom was like the FBI when I was growing up, so I'm a master at hiding stuff. And I know you can hide cigarettes in your bra strap. That was like my favorite.
And they're not going that deep with their patting. And a lot of times they're not patting. If you're a pretty lady, they're not patting you down at all, for real. They're like, hey, you're good.
I've seen it go the extreme though, where I'm like, that person.
Yeah, it's easy.
I get the extra pat down.
Yeah, I've gotten the extra pat down. I was like, I don't think so. We're done.
They wanted to be friends after the club was closed. That's what that extra pat down was for. Yeah, you got these 2 extremes.
I'm like, too much. There's been plenty of times I'm like, you're doing too much. Like I don't have any.
Well, that's
I'm really thorough in the job. I take a lot of pride in it, and I'm like, I don't think you really need to come my ass again, but thanks.
Yeah, if there's nothing that can fit there, that's it. You're good. Walk away.
Yeah, you got two, different kinds of security at the door. If they're not getting in trouble, they're gonna do it.
I watched something happen recently, and I want to get your thoughts on this because it was ugh. If I was so I had to go to the emergency room recently, which oh god, I was like I did not want to have to go to the emergency room in a pandemic, but I had to do it. And it was pretty late at night, and I unfortunately watched a situation happen that I felt like was super easy to avoid. There was a young man that came in, and he was, even if he was high on something, he had mental health issues. It was obvious. He was talking to himself, but he had so much anxiety. He was in a horrific state of anxiety. I could see it, and I don't have any training, you know, in that way, but it was so obvious. And he kept walking around like talking to himself and then like kind of looking at people like and saying, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to fix it, I'm so sorry, over and over and over. And if I wasn't so sick, I would have gotten involved and probably gotten hurt. My husband would not have been happy with me. But they kept so he would kept going to the nurse's station because he was just, you could see the anxiety. He was, I mean, just horrible. He was in a full-on panic attack. And they kept telling him to go sit down, go sit down. And I'm like, the nurses at the desk, I mean, oh, God love them. You know, especially right now in an emergency room, I know they see the horrors of the horrors. I get it. But also, are you not experienced enough to know this guy isn't going to go sit down and wait, right? Then security got involved. And they kept going, okay, no, I need you. And I couldn't hear everything they were saying, but it was, you got to calm down. And I just kept going, he can't calm down. Like I'm sitting in my chair, like he can't talk to himself. Like he can't calm down. He literally can't calm down. That's why he walked into the emergency room, I'm assuming. Don't you have social workers for this? Don't you have, I don't know. Aren't you prepared for this? Doesn't this happen? So and it just, this went on for about an hour. Because anxiety, it's not going to just magically go away. I don't know why you think someone like that can just sit there and wait. So, of course, what I was fearing as I'm watching this all go down, I'm just like, he's getting more and more hysterical and more hysterical. So finally they were like, we're going to have to ask you to leave. And I'm like, he came for help. Like, he came for help. He's in a hospital where he should be able to get help. People should know how to handle this. Security in a hospital, I assumed, and I might be wrong, is it not a different type of training, or do you not? I don't know. I would hope it was a different extra training because you're in a hospital. They ended up beating him up, is what happened.
Okay.
And it was so disturbing. I was so upset.
That doesn't make sense.
The beating up.
It sounds like a breakdown or an episode. It's
and he wasn't being violent. He just couldn't sit still.
Well, what happened in between the you need to leave and the beating up? How did the beating up
He just couldn't sit still. He couldn't sit down.
So
he kept going him. And then they tried to drag him out.
They tried to drag him out. Okay.
And that's when I just went and I get like I couldn't even. I had a migraine that was unbearable, or I would have jumped up and done something. I would have flung my body on top of him. I think I was also in a bit of shock because I was in pain and tired. Just this can't be, and I couldn't even look. I couldn't look. I'm like, how? He's in a hospital. Yeah. He was not. There was no language of violence. It was all very. I'm in trouble. I'm in fear.
Yeah.
I need help. I need help. And I understand he can't be going to the nurses desk. But again, isn't there someone from psych that can come down and get him? Isn't there?
I don't think so. They definitely failed him.
That's how I felt.
Well, first we can go at it in steps because I wasn't there, so I'm going to talk very vaguely about what you're saying. So the first fail was the nurse. The nurse's station was the first fail because if security gets called, just like at the bar, if you call me and you tell me you need this guy to leave or you tell me you need this guy to sit down, that's what I'm going to do because security is really on command type thing. If you're telling me this is what needs to be done, then usually if you're a person who only thinks, straightforward in one way, you're going to do exactly what you're being told to do, which is make him sit down or make him leave. You're also have to figure out if this person who's responding do they have enough empathy to be like, okay, listen to what he's saying. He needs help. Let me go back to the nurse's station and say, hey, can you call upstairs and get somebody down here for him? Now that would be me, but everybody's not going to do that. So the problem with the job is to get that person to comply, to do what you're asking them to do, not ask them to call somebody upstairs. You don't have to do that. You have to take it upon yourself to do that. And that's probably in the private sector where the biggest problem is, because you can get hired by a company. They put 16 different people inside this hospital who don't talk to each other. When shift change, you say, all right, yeah, no, everything was great, all clear, we're all good. And you leave and you go about your day. Then you get another person comes in here and nobody has ever had any mental health training, because I've never had a job that gave me mental health training. I've worked inside of a hospital. I worked in an old folks home. I worked in all these. I've never had a company say, Jasmine, come in on Saturday for your training so you can learn how to deal with it. No, it doesn't happen, because if in a private sector, if you don't have to do it, if the state's not telling you you have to do it, then that means you're coming out of your own company pocket to do it. And most people are not doing that. So that's the biggest problem. So the nurse should have definitely done what she was supposed to do. And I'm sure they're overwhelmed, and I'm sure they get people in there all the time who act a certain way. And, if it's late, I can't even speak on that, because I'm sure they're dealing with a lot. But the problem is, just with the rest of the world, is treating everybody exactly the same. Mm-hmm. And that's the huge problem. You're treating him just like you treated the last person who came in here and did probably similar things. But now you're going to feel bad if you see the same exact person on the news have passed away because they ran out in the middle of the street right after they left the hospital. If somebody's coming in the hospital for help them. You take oaths, everybody, you help them. But with private security, we're not like police. We don't take this oath that we have to do this, that, or the third. Everybody's company has their own core values. Everybody's company has insurance or lack of. So when you do certain things, it's just, security is so touchy with these kind of things, because there's really no actual protocols in place. You're
that's what I assumed, is that in a hospital there would be a different security protocol, especially for someone that walked himself in. That he wasn't brought in by law enforcement. He wasn't dragged in. He walked himself in, and he was very clean clothes, all of that. And he was trying to sit down, but I could see the state of anxiety. I think it was so obvious. So I guess that was my assumption was, is there a different level of training because you're a security in a hospital, or does the hospital have its own security that they are? I would think that should be part of it. The training is to be a little more knowledgeable about psychiatric issues, because you might get that a lot.
But he was with you in the ER, right? Yeah. So because of that, it's not the officer that's on the floor with the people with psychiatric issues either. Right. So you might have an officer who has training that works on that floor, but where you are, you have officers who might not have that training because they are on the regular floor. So there, it's just a lot of stuff that goes into it, especially if the hospitals here in Baltimore, they actually have their own police departments. They actually have their own security departments, and those kind of security departments might actually have the training. But like I said, in my years, I've worked at hospitals, I worked at homes, and they never gave me the training. I had to train myself. Basically, I had to go, if this was my grandparent, this was my grandfather, or this was my brother, how would I want that person treated? And everybody doesn't think that, especially if the nurse told me, hey, do this, I need you to do that. And on your SOP, and you're supposed to be following that. And it vaguely says, if nurse station calls you, do what nurse station says, basically, then you can get away with whatever it is you're doing, because, I was just trying to get him out of the hospital. Oh, he scratched me, or he hit me. And those things can happen even if the person didn't try to hit the officer, or even if the person didn't try to scratch the officer. In a scuffle, you're going to get scratched. So if I decide a scratch means I'm going to punch you in the face, but I can say, hey, I have a scratch on my arm. All I was doing was trying to follow protocol by getting him out. And some places say you can't be hands-on, and some places say you do. So it really on that individual, protocol for that place. But it's so different everywhere. There's no standardized thing anymore. You know, everybody's making their own decisions on how things should be handled. You know, so that's definitely the downfall of private security.
It sounds like something that's very broken.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 It's
But I think of the ramifications of that, because now you have this person who is in so much duress, and now he is, unfortunately, you know, didn't get the help that he seeks. He's in the street, and we don't know if he's going to antagonize someone else. We don't know how reactive he's going to be. We don't know the people he's going to be in proximity to. We don't know if he's having, a mental illness episode. We don't know. And
don't know.
It's a great example of like what a difference it would make depending on who is the person who is in the middle of the situation, who can possibly de-escalate it and diffuse it, so that it doesn't have to become where we have a person in incredible duress out in the streets now. And it's.
I mean, this is a giant problem we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, across in so many circumstances and so many situations, you know, with the American Police Department, you know, with society as a whole, with school systems, you know, the amount of security officers that have harmed children and things like that. I mean, this is such a huge problem. And again, just to circle back, I think that, you know, I'm a big advocate, and some people don't like this term, and I don't really care what the hell you call it, but it's what it's called. Defund the police. I'm a big advocate of that, because I think that they are often faced with the same situation these security guards were faced with that night. They don't have the training. They have also have to be put in places at times where they have to dehumanize themselves. Well, if you dehumanize yourself, you're going to have to dehumanize the person you're dealing with as well. And then there's the systematic racism, of course. But I firmly believe that it should not be police officers dealing with the majority of things that they get called into, because they have no training, no expertise, and no tools for something like that. I read a wonderful article that an actual former police officer wrote that said, when you strap me up with weapons and send me to talk someone down from something, I'm strapped up with weapons. Those are my tools. Right. My tools are not, how do I talk? That's why you're supposed to call in a this person or that person, you know, for this case or that case. You know, instead we could spend a little, you know, again, defunding means reallocating funds. And in the end, it also means supporting the good police officers, taking away some of the things that they shouldn't be dealing with because they don't have the training, you know, and that's just going to make a safer society, in my opinion, for everybody, and put everyone in the correct place. You know, our poor social workers, you know, they should have six-figure salaries for the amount of training and education and experience they have to have and what they deal with. So I, you know, after speaking to you the first time, just did a little bit of reading about, you know, what is private security and what does it mean? Because some people have certain ideas, like, you know, small cops, like you said, you started out, and then there's private security who have been blamed for doing horrible things in other countries, you know, in conjunction with our armed forces and things like that. So, you know, what is that entity? But really was the de-escalation thing, that if this is, you know, if we're really going to change the system, that's one way that I think we're going to dismantle it, is by having more people like you in private security and in police departments fighting for a change to how we approach all of these things.
Yeah,
I'm so appreciative of what you do.
I think with putting that in my bio, with deciding that it was going to be a reoccurring conversation on all my social medias, it was because I need other officers who are around me to understand that it is possible to talk somebody down. Like, even from that edge, it's possible to talk somebody out of doing what they came there to do. It's possible. It doesn't just happen on the movies. It can happen in real life. I've experienced it in real life. I've not gotten hit because I talked to somebody like they were a human being. You know, I've done a lot of dealt with a lot of situations in my career where it could have really went bad for me if somebody my size, and just treating somebody even if they don't deserve it. I think a lot of things, it comes with ego and empathy smashed together. Like if your ego is beyond, if you're walking around like you're RoboCop anyway, then the empathy thing is going to be hard to seep out anyway, because you're already, acting that way. So for me, with de-escalation, I needed to be something that these private security firms actually teach. So I wrote a book on it, and I'm currently writing a curriculum to go with the book, because I wanted to actually become part of training, because it was a training I never got. I had to develop it due to who I am and what I want it to be like. My father, like I said, is a police officer, and he's been in fights, he's been in scuffles, but he doesn't bring it home. He decompresses, and he doesn't, my friend called him a barista the other day. Like, I didn't know your dad was a police officer. I thought he was a barista, because he doesn't let that stuff bother him, because he also goes out there with that empathy on the tip of his tongue already. Let me help you. What's going on? Talk to me. You know what I mean? Like, you can be ready to shoot your firearm, but still be ready to also not shoot your firearm. You know what I'm saying? And every situation isn't the same. I don't want anybody watching this to think, oh, she just think everything is just, candy canes and sugar dust. No, I absolutely say that on my page all the time, that de-escalation isn't just magical fairy dust and you can sprinkle it and everybody's okay. You have to work towards it. It's something that you have to build inside of you, and then you have to share it, because these new officers, they're ready to go out here and do whatever. They're ready. They're like, oh, hey, I can do this. I have this on my belt. I'm allowed to do this. And that's another thing. If you're allowed to do it, people do it. People always say, oh man, that police officer shouldn't have done that. But they're allowed to do certain things. And you might not know that because you haven't done your research to know, what their continuum, their use of force continuum is. So you think it's wrong, but it's on their sheet of paper that says, if this happens, you're allowed to do this. If this happens, you can do this. So it looks really bad on video, but I'm allowed to do it. So I do it. Now, as a human, should I choose a different option, or could I? Yes. And that's where de-escalation comes in at. So that's why I'm trying to get this class, and I'm going to offer it to probably every private security company that I can get my hands on their email, because I feel like we as private security officers on this level, like, and I'm talking about retail, loss prevention, parties, things like that, we don't get enough training given to us. We have to pay for everything. We have to pay for our own gear. We have to pay for our own uniforms. We have to pay for our weapons. We have to pay for training. Everything we get in this part of the sector, we have to pay for. And because of that, and we might not make enough, we usually slack on the training because it costs so much. And we still got to feed our families, So that's one thing that the police department, with the defunding and everything, the funds can be reallocated to more upfront training, more changes in training, changes in mental health evaluations of the officers when they get hired. These people aren't bad police. Most of these people are bad people because they have to take and put on the uniform every day. When they filled out the application, they already thought this way. When they filled out the application, they already felt this way towards a different human being because of the color of their skin. It's not because they're police. It's being police allows them to act that way and get away with it. And I say that to people all the time because, I'm from, New York. I've seen the best of people do crazy things and things they shouldn't have done. But I also come from a police officer family. So I'm in the middle and I see both sides, and I'm very down to earth. So I have no problem having these conversations with people. I'm not like, oh, no, all police are good. No. I've been pulled over. I've had luxury vehicles all my life, and I've had loud music and gangster rap on all my life. So it's like I get pulled over and I get treated certain ways, but I know that person would treat me that way in the grocery store, even if they were police. So we have to, they have to start thinking about who they hire before anything actually happens. And I think that for me, de-escalation, yes, but the police departments need to start figuring out a better way to hire certain people. I know good people who have not got into the police department. I was denied, my application was denied into a police department one time for my health history. Like, my health history, and I'm fine. I'm doing what I'm doing now. But they decided to deny me, but they'll take somebody who ends up killing someone for no reason. So the problem is way beyond just that actual officer you're watching on camera. You know what I'm saying? So when I hear defund, at first I was like, well, what does that really mean? But when I started to read into it, I understood it was, allocated in different ways. It definitely needs to go to, overseeing. I think that some police and some civilians should have, a board of overseeing. So we need to be looking through the files. Okay, you've gotten in trouble for this same thing 16 times. This is a problem. That okay, you got your little discipline, you went to a class, now you're back on the street. I think that's an issue as well, and I can't do anything about that. I can send in letters, I can do whatever, but private security, I can do that, because some of these private security officers, they go off to be police. So you have to kind of catch, just like a child, you have to catch them, early before they grow up and go do that. And that's exactly what I try to do with all the new officers who hit me up on Instagram and, hey, what do you think about this? So that's kind of how I see that.
That's so awesome.
Really great insight that you just shared with us. And what is the name of your book?
My book,
where can people find it?
So it's actually not out. I'm actually announcing it right now here with you guys.
Yay.
Okay. It's called 0 to 35, and it's basically 35 different tactics that I've used in my career that have successfully de-escalated situations. And I give stories, I give personal stories, I give examples, how to execute it, and I even break it down to this type of person may be able to do it this way. But if you're this kind of personality, you may be able to do it this way. Because I know everybody's not the same. But it's just 35 straightforward things of how you could get through the day without pulling your firearm. So, and that's
helpful to people that don't work.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Just like you guys said, bartenders. I mean, you guys de-escalate better than the police sometimes. So.
I know that is a fact.
Yeah, it's absolutely a fact. So the book will be available this month. So
congratulations, Jen.
Yes, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Cheers to that.
Cheers
to 0 to 35.
Yes, 0 to 35.
Sorry, I'm filling with water.
It's okay.
Thank you so much for being on with us tonight and giving us your time and discussing this with us. Really, really awesome. And a late happy birthday to you as well.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm just so glad we got to meet you. So, and thank you everyone that tuned in tonight and hung out with us. And just let us know as soon as you have a link when your book drops, and we'll definitely promote it for you.
I will. Thank you. Thank you guys a lot for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks everybody. Good night.
Bye.